This one's gonna be a little different. In Splatoon 2, I never really touched Sloshing Machine, but when it became meta towards the start of Splatoon 3, my coach told me to try it out. I actually enjoyed it more than Slosher, so much to the point that it was my first 5-star weapon. Machine was a meta staple in the beginning of Splatoon 3, being played by many people like Kyo, Biscuit, Urza, and Volty. It was so broken for a while, until it just kept getting nerfed by Nintendo. The main weapon got a speed and ink efficiency nerf, Fizzy Paint became worse, and its Booyah eventually became 220p, being only one of the 3 weapons out of the 160-ish weapons that Splatoon 3 has. With all of these nerfs, Machine was eventually taken out of the meta, with Slosher taking its place, and the weapon was forgotten by the community, only getting play from a few people who still hold on to the past. I'm one of those people, by the way, so here's how to play Machine in the big 2025. Sloshing Machine does 38 damage for its indirect, doubling to 76 for its direct hit. Its range for the indirect is just between Slosher and Dredden, but its direct range is just barely over S-Blast, pretty much to the point where they're the same. The direct has a bit of damage fall off the further you shoot up from with a minimum of 52, and the indirect luckily doesn't have any. The AoE hitbox is pretty visibly accurate, just remember that latency and lag can affect how that seems sometimes. The weapon itself is pretty slow as its startup and end lag are pretty bad, so just be sure to not try and only abuse your AoE shots, as weapons with faster kill times can just destroy you. Machine also has the highest natural run speed while shooting in the entire class of sloshers, matching some short range shooters like Shot and Splash, along with being a bit quicker than things like 52 and Squeezer. Its kit is Fizzy and Booyah Bomb. Fizzy has some pretty good paint output, but it's also gotten some nerfs over time. Despite that, it still lets Machine get to large paint numbers, along with being a good combo and movement tool. Booyah allows Machine to move far away players, allowing for your teammates to go in with the paint and pressure, or you can use it to continue aggressive plays with your 470 HP armor. You have to be pretty careful when you use it though. Popping it where you can't use cover afterwards, or using it where you get shredded can be detrimental, because it takes so long for you to get it again with Machine's 220p special requirement. Now, I love Machine, and I want to see it work, but I'm gonna be honest when I say it just doesn't. At the highest level of play, Machine simply can't keep up with the fast pace of the other meta weapons like Sword, S-Blast, and even Slosher. It gets decent buffs from Cooler, especially with the extra strafe speed, but since it struggles to fight other aggros, it can't thrive. The main weapon's time to kill is incredibly slow, so it can't really be an aggressive weapon like it was before. With Fizzy's nerf to its pain and damage, it's hard to justify just spamming those to avoid using the main weapon too. And Booyah got some recent buffs, but since it takes so long to get the special, it doesn't really mean much. Machine's lack of aggressive potential also makes it so Fizzy's movement and the survivability of Booyah don't even get used too often. At this point at top level, Machine is more of a tool to get other teammates in with the Fizzy chip and Booyah buffs, as the whole kit is a decent crab counter. Do you know what else are good crab counters?
The same weapons I mentioned 40 seconds ago.
The kit has to become more supportive to work, but there's just so many other better options right now, making Machine irrelevant as both an aggro and a support. So unfortunately, at the highest level of play, Machine is just bad. That's not to say it can't work in lower levels though. I mean, just look at the stuff I was pulling off while getting back on the weapon recently.
Enemy spotted. Let's do this. Michael! Don't leave me here! Michael! Michael!
At lower levels of play, where the speed of the game isn't as well fast, it can do pretty well. But it's important to understand how it works nowadays before just trying to jump into the weapon. Positioning is more important than ever with Machine, as with its weaknesses, you have to be very careful. But that doesn't mean you can't do anything in a game. On holds in a neutral game, Machine has an easy time playing around cover and long distances, allowing it to sit around walls and blocks to spam fizzies and AoE shots to keep other opponents at bay. It's hard to sit somewhere without getting damaged by Machine if you're in its range. It can also play under ledges like Slosher does, but it has an easier time hitting enemies in my opinion. This is because of its larger AoE during its entire shot, rather than having a large slosh with a smaller trail. So it won't kill easily like Slosher can with its more consistent high damage, but the pressure to force people off of ledges can be important as you could possibly move opponents into your teammates, or away from places your teammates may not be able to reach as easily. During the time you're spamming ledges and around other areas of cover, you're also farming your Booyah Bomb, giving you and your team a chance to move forward. When moving forward, it's important to remember that you're not very fast, even with Cooler, so focus on dealing damage with your teammates to confirm or assist kills rather than trying to fight solo. I mentioned earlier that Booya's stalling potential is a bit lost with Machine, but remember that it can be useful in situations where you may die, and popping it gives your teammates time to come help you, because you should be near them in the first place. You could also just jump out if you're Cooler to live, but if your position is important to hold, like maybe a high ground spot or near the objective, popping Booya could be very helpful. When on retakes, it struggles to get back in, but remember that you can clear under ledges easily with your AoE and Fizzy, but focus on surviving to get your Booya, or wait for your team to get an advantage to play off of. Because of your lack of range compared to some other midlines, it's useful to play on sides of the map that may have more cover for you to abuse, rather than trying to run through the middle out of spawn, which on most maps is pretty open. In short, Machine's positioning is mainly meant for holding important space while being able to move and damage opponents easily with its larger AoE while your entire team builds a push. Now, moving on to the details of the kit. Fizzy and Booya with the main weapon is probably one of the best kits in the game. Fizzy allows you to have better movement with the trail and explosion paint, along with giving you a consistent 35 to 50 damage for you and your teammates to work with from a long distance. Booya Bomb, as mentioned before, is a good stalling tool, letting you live longer in the important positions that you may take from opponents. Remember that you don't get it very often though because of how slow the main weapon is at painting, so it's important to know when you should use it for survival or for something else. It's also a nice objective tool, being able to paint zone well, stall tower, pop Rainmaker, and generally assist or prevent movement in all modes. Its massive radius makes it a good displacement tool especially, allowing you to open up space for your teammates by moving backlines, painting large area, breaking specials, or possibly killing enemies. A fun, yet only sometimes useful tech, is angling Booya up a little bit rather than just throwing it straight on the ground. This can catch enemies off guard, or if they're a bit too slow, can stall them just a little longer. Booya has a lot of versatility to be explored, so it's hard to put it into words an exact way to use it, but you always want to be thinking about why you're using Booya, either in reviews of your own gameplay, or just during a match, and then you'll slowly get used to how it should be used depending on the given situation. Your kit is useful, but it's also expensive. Fortunately, this can be changed with gear abilities fairly easily. Most machine gear you'll see runs Last Ditch Effort, Runner Swim Speed, and Stealth Jump as its mains. For its subs, you'll see usually a sub with Sub Saver, Utility, and whatever other random stuff that player likes. The Last Ditch Effort and Sub Saver allows you to have Double Fizzy pretty early in its activation. Double Fizzy kills your ink tank, but you're applying pretty good paint and chip at a good distance, which is good for objective play and holding or poking. Run and Swim Speed are incredibly important, as you're already pretty slow. Run Speed stacks really well, allowing you to strafe a lot faster, even with something just like 2 subs. And Swim Speed allows you to escape or chase kills easier to make up for Machine's slower fire rate, and of course, you move around the map generally faster. Stealth Jump is just broken on pretty much anything. I'm not gonna elaborate, just ask me in the comments if you really need to. Utility subs are also a must run, as they either reduce the amount of times you die, increase your movement, or they are special saver, which is just good. I personally run a bit of special charge with my build to get a 209p Booya Bomb, but you could also run another sub of quick super jump or more movement stuff if you want. One sub of Ink Saver main also gives you 11 shots instead of your normal 10, so you'll see some people running that too. Gear is nice, but what about teammates? You'd think with how similar this thing is to Slosher that you could just run what you would run with Slosher, right? And my friend. Yeah, that's it. You usually want weapons that could also make up for the pain output while still being able to fight, so things like Shot, Splash, and the new Frozen Pro are nice, so long as they're also a bit more aggressive than normal. Mint, Sword, and even Slosher are also nice aggressors to play with, and if you're fine with running double Booya, S-Boss can work too. You just need a good painter. And of course, Pencil is great with the chip damage and pain output, so that's a given. The other good cooler options like Rapid, Zap, and Edit work decently too, but they're not nearly as good as Pencil with Machine because they're all lacking something. Rapid can't paint enough, Zap doesn't have the range, and Edit doesn't really have the chip damage for Machine. Also, I'm only really mentioning cooler comps because that's the only thing I've played with recently on Machine, so playing non-cooler, I'm really not sure. So yeah, Machine is pretty similar to Slosher in terms of comps to play with, but remember that maps, modes, enemies, and even teammates can all affect what you play with, so it's important as the Machine player to be able to think about the strengths and weaknesses of your comp and adapt accordingly. With all of this in mind, Machine gets play in lower levels by having a presence on important parts of the map for as long as possible. When opponents have a harder time playing around its AoE and quickly killing it, Machine can be an insane threat with its high damage and AoE spam. The higher level of play you get to, the harder Machine will get though, as it has a difficult time playing against weapons that can just be generally faster. Faster, not just meaning swimming faster and shooting faster, but acquiring space and positions quickly, playing off of specials or small advantages swiftly, rapidly performing small actions like camera movement and kill times, and even painting, expeditiously, but if you can effectively use it, it can definitely still win. Recently in Europe, a player named Yaru had played with Black Lotus, the top team in Germany, and they had won United Land 2025 with Machine. It still has a few players who periodically switch on the weapon who can still perform well, like Osa, who was a member of Lunchbox, a recent Ludi Division 1 team. In my experience trying to play at a top level, I struggle to really fight much and instead play more for my distance pressure and chip damage. But without my aggro potential compared to when I play Bucket, it's hard to win without getting one good hold. And I can only play it on certain maps like Crableg and Bluefin where I can abuse my range. Fizzy Bomb. On shorter range maps like Urchin and Humpback, I just get destroyed. Even Bran, an old member of Starburst and current player on Milky Way who will play in the Splat World Series coming soon, mentioned to me that it feels like he can't even shoot enough to impact the game against some of the best in the Western scene. But remember that this is a top level. In mid to high level scrims and tournament sets, I can play Machine and still be winning because the game just isn't played as fast. This allows me to properly space and position with a lot more ease, letting me abuse Machine's strengths of pressure on cover and distant damage output for my team. Machine is very flexible, but because of how nerfed the weapon is, and how strong a lot of other weapons are in the meta right now, it has a hard time succeeding in higher levels. Speed of play is Machine's biggest enemy, but if you can be positionally faster and smarter than your enemy, along with using your kit properly, you can 100% still win. I've tried to make excuses to play this weapon for so long, but it's finally time for me to just stick to Slosher, and pass the torch down to those who made it this far in the guide. I hope this was helpful in explaining how to play Machine and push it to its limits, while also explaining why those limits exist. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you got a good head start. But this wasn't really head start, it's kinda just a full weapon guide. Whatever.